won't you do right like some other men do?
Hello and welcome to Fridays OffBeat. That's right, once a month on Fridays or thereabouts, we sit down with an amazing guest who is very musical in nature, and we talk about their work, their life, blah, blah, blah. And we did it last time with Ivan Neville, and now we're coming back for the fall series, and we are very excited to have my friend Judith Owen sitting with us.
I'm excited to be here. I have my own mug.
Yes, you must show the crowd the mug. Yeah, there you go, Loyola University. She gets a sample mug just for being here.
If I'd known I would have got one of these, I'd have come a long time ago.
Yes,
That's what I'm saying.
We are at Loyola University, and we have a great facility, so we're glad to share it with Judith and the community and the folks at OffBeat. So, first of all, let's go back in the beginning. How did a young gal from Wales, that would be a Welsh person, I believe.
Yes, it's not a Welsher, it's a Welsh person.
It's a Welsh person. How did you end up in New Orleans? How did it happen?
It seems like the most improbable thing, honestly, Jonathan. It seems so improbable that somebody from Wales would end up here. Why would I? It's actually, I was always destined to be here. I had to come here because since I was 5 years old, and my family are all from Wales, my father and mother left Wales when we were tiny to go to London. He was an opera singer at Royal Opera House, Covent Garden, so I was brought up in this unbelievable environment of classical music and being at the opera every weekend. But he had a collection, bar none, of jazz and blues, and a collection of New Orleans music that was extraordinary, from Jelly Roll Morton, to Mahalia Jackson. And it was an extraordinary thing to hear this music. When I finally came here, I felt like I'd sort of come home more than anything else. He had Johnny Adams, he had Keely Smith and Sam Butera, and what is his name? The fabulous trumpet player from here, Italian trumpet player.
Louis Prima?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Who was the band leader? Louis Prima.
I was going to go out hurt, but then when you said
No.
when
Louis
you
Prima.
went Italian, I was like,
Italian,
okay, I'm taking that
totally.
shot. Yeah.
Louis Prima.
Legend.
Yeah. And of course, the godfather of it all.
So as a young child, you were immersed in this music before you even knew anything about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I didn't know what it was, but I knew that it sounded great. And so it was this counterpart to the deep, meaningful classical music that made me cry and feel great, big emotions and dramatic emotions, because I'm such a drama queen anyway. But then add to that, you've got the absolute joy and hopefulness that comes from this ecstatic music. Sure. And it was ecstatic. Louis Armstrong, for starters, there you've got there. The first thing I heard was Louis and Ella, and it was just beyond belief. But the thing I remember the most, in amongst these 33s of like Prokofiev and Rachmaninoff, Chopin, Puccini, everything, were these tiny little 45 collection that he'd had when he was a kid in the 50s, and when he was really young, and it looked like, I don't know, they looked like children's, they looked like the children of vinyl. And, they were so tiny and cute looking. But anyway, in amongst this were the songs that set me alight and made me realize, because I was already obsessed with the piano, but it was Nellie Lutcher, Julia Lee, Pearl Bailey, Blossom Dearie, Dinah Washington. And they were all these 45s full of, the first was Fine Brown Frame. And when I heard that, and I heard Nellie Lutcher singing in this distinct, punctuated, percussive way, along with her piano stylings, which was so unique to her. And I mean, she's from Louisiana. She's from Lake Charles, Louisiana, so she's right here. When I heard that, it was as if my whole view of the world and of who I could be and who I would become shifted, and a light was turned on, because there was this killer woman at the piano playing in this kind of powerful, fearless, unapologetic way. And she was so uncompromising, so singular. And it really gave me, like I said, it kind of gave me a roadmap, because I knew that I wanted to be a powerful woman. Even at age 5, 6, I wanted to be a powerful woman at the piano. That was always it.
Well, I mean, that bolds the question. I mean, obviously you had a great career thus far, and And the record we're talking about, by the way, I've always wanted to do that because I grew up watching Dave Letterman do that and Jay Leno. So
you are my Dave Letterman.
So,
okay.
But why did it take you so long to make this record then? What
was boy, why does it take so long to come out as anything that is genuinely yourself? To have like I said, these are fearless women, and they had a hard time. They were singing about female sexuality. They were rippling with double entendre and innuendo at a time when nice girls were meant to be singing about romance. Right. They were meant to be decoration. I mean, Ella could do anything.
Sure.
But they wouldn't let Ella sing these kind of songs. She did one album of blues, and they pulled it immediately because they thought it went against brand. And and that for them was a bad thing.
And let's talk about what you mean by these kind of songs.
Oh,
There's double entendre songs, singing mostly about sex, but couching them in other ways. Talk about what that genre is to you.
It spoke to me. It always spoke to me, and it speaks to me still, and it speaks to everybody that hears this music. It is sexy music. It is sexual. That is all about innuendo. It's not blatant. It's not spelt out. It's like, the fact that one of my favorite Dinah Washington songs, which was not a big, broad hit, but it's one of the best things I've ever heard, called Big Long Sliding Thing. Thank you.
I wonder if that's a trombone. That's about a trombone.
It is about a trombone. Thank you that you said that. It's it's about a trombone player. Mm-hmm. Now, I just can leave that hanging in the air. I don't need to say another word.
Right. And that's the beautiful thing about the genre.
That's it. King size papa. I got a man who's almost 8 foot tall.
A large man.
A large man. I take the door off the hinges when my baby comes to call. Now that line gives me goosebumps just saying it. It makes me laugh so much, and I think that's what this music about is.
Right, and Spinach is about the green, leafy.
The leafy thing that Popeye loves so much.
Right.
It can really build you up. It's not at all about edibles.
Right, and it's legal. It's legal in a lot of states now.
In a lot of states.
Yeah.
So, what I really love about it is that the sly tongue-in-cheekness of it is so much funnier.
It really. Now that I've known you for so long, and now thinking about it, it suits your personality so well.
Oh my gosh! You know how wicked I am.
Right.
I love the deliciousness, the mystery. It's why I personally like wearing it. I like keeping it on. I don't want to take it off when I'm on stage. I've never been that person. I've always liked overdressing, and the sexuality and the flirt coming out in a different way, in a way that to me is much more fun. I believe that humor is such a power. It's such a strength to be able to, and these songs encapsulate sexuality with a sense of humor. These women were having fun. They were celebrating it, and that's why in a city like New Orleans, everything has a sense of humor. Everything from Mardi Gras, every single tragedy and dreadful thing that happens, an awful political situation is treated with joy, with satire, with let's celebrate because life is hard.
Right.
And I think these little gems from the 40s and 50s, 2.5 minutes long a piece, that were meant to be danced to, were meant to be sung to, they are absolutely there to entertain us, and that's what I love about it.
So obviously you had some great major label experience. You were signed to Capitol Records.
Yeah.
Glenn Ballard, I believe, who signed you, right? One of the great producers. You produced Alanis Morissette, and we know how she did, selling crazy 40 million amount of records or something like that.
50 million.
50 million.
Yeah,
so
and rising.
That is as a singer-songwriter. Now you're an interpreter, like the classic Tony Bennett or these other people that do it. Talk about that difference in songwriting and interpreting other people's.
Well, it wraps around the last question that I never got to answer because I'm Welsh, so I just keep talking for the.
And I'll just keep asking them.
No, just
we'll
keep
build them
asking.
Up till later.
And at some point, I'll
right,
stop.
We'll get to them.
Stop knocking you off, and I'll answer the actual question. I'm very political that way. I just answer what I want. But honestly, why did it take me so long to get to this point? Well, I didn't come in. I came in with a real backbone and a desire to be a fearless piano player and singer. But my first love was writing. And that piano was I had a love affair with the piano like nothing else. I still do. It still brings me to tears. It still makes me feel elated when I'm at the piano. It's like nothing else. It's always been my best friend, and it was my way out as a child in a not so happy household. and it became that private, wonderful place.
So that's how you escaped into it.
Totally. It was the way that I expressed myself. I think for any young artist, for any young musician, the vital purpose to me, and the difference between some artists and others, and when you're young, I think you start to realize this, is whether you're doing it, and this town knows all about this, you're doing it because you have to, because it's the only way that you can get through life. It is that important to you. It means that much. Or you're doing it because you want to be a star, you want success, you want to have fun, you want to be in a band, you want to pick up girls, whatever it might be, you want to pick up boys, whatever it is. But for some of us, for most of us, it's because we can't actually live without it. The idea of not having it in my life is unbearable, and that's the lust that you have for it.
And that's what musicians, that's at Loyola University. Obviously, we bring people here who want to pursue their craft, and that's what their goal is, and that's what we try to help them put them out in the world.
And I like to tell young people now, because it turns out I've become a role model, but I'll get to that in a second, because this is what's so strange. It's like, how did it take me so long? Why is this my first entree into this? It took a lifetime, and I'm not over yet. But it took a long time for me to really, it was like I was that person, this woman, in gestation. And I think that happens for a lot of people. It's like I had to get this confident. I had to really pull on every strength that I have. I was trained as an actress and as a dancer, and music was my private love. But I've drawn on, over the years, every single aspect of these gifts that we are given in life, and mine are all these things. But I always wanted to be, since I was a kid, I wanted to be an entertainer. I really wanted that more than anything.
Let me take you back for a second. So your father was an opera singer at Covent Garden, right? Which is one of the top opera houses in Europe, right?
In the world.
And so seeing him perform, was that something you knew that you had to have, that performance? Yeah. Because your stage presence is one of the great things about your show, is that you have a great repartee with the audience. You're able to come up with one-liners, and you're able to spin off people like Torkanowski, who we'll get into in a minute. So that stage presence has always been fantastic, even if it was just you and a piano in a super stripped-down acoustic mode. Now you have your real foil, right? You have this incredible, look at this lady, you know what I'm saying?
That's Lady J, as Kevin Lewis's mother christened me, I've got to tell you, at Snug Harbor.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. Coming out from behind the piano took so long. The piano is my anchor. It's my friend. It's the place of safety. We all have those places. Even rock gods have their guitars,
Sure.
But luckily they're standing. Very hard to be a front person when you're behind a piano. And I had always that strength at the piano. Takes a long time, some more than others, to get to a point where you think, I can get up in the front and I can do it all. Not just that, I can command the stage, but not command it and feel like an imposter, because we all have imposter syndrome. Every artist I know has imposter syndrome. I think it's taken the time to hone all these crafts I have and to actually come out owning it. Absolutely authentic. I'm singing about unapologetic, confident women who taught me twice. These are a group of women who have shown me twice in my life how to be. Not just once when I was a kid. It happened again in the making of this record. And this is what's extraordinary about role models and about the people we look to who influence us and show us the path. These women were, like I said, uncompromising, singular, one of a kind. They didn't fit in. They couldn't be pigeonholed. They weren't embraced a lot of the time by the industry, except for Peggy Lee, I'd say. Most of them struggled because they were so unique. But it didn't matter. They couldn't be anything else than they were. And that's who I am. That's what I stand for. And finally, I guess, I'm at a point where I'm singing the songs of unapologetic women. And guess what? Turns out that's who I am. Turns out that's who I've always been. Turns out that the thing that we all lack, men, women, everyone in between, is that sense of being enough and not ever having to apologize for who you are. Even if
you're going with the bright yellow suit.
Even if you're coming on with the bright yellow suit and you don't fit in.
We're all in.
And we don't fit in with the world around us.
No, it's great. And you also
know,
told me that, you've been seeing a lot of young women come up to you who don't know these songs, who don't know you, but they come to your show, they get turned on to your music. And by the way, this record is almost 2 million in streams in Spotify, which is unbelievable. Because
for a jazz record, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's hard to get that kind of traction.
Yeah.
So it is connecting, which is the greatest thing you could ever want in your music, obviously. But how does it feel when young women come up to you now and talk about, this record and the songs?
It's extraordinary. I mean, I found myself in Europe because this began in Europe because, no surprise. I'm from London, of course, but in Europe, the love of jazz and blues is like nothing any US ever. It's always been that way. It's always been that way. Only America doesn't understand or appreciate the great art, the great American gift to the world. I think that's really what's shocking to all of us who aren't from here. And especially you come to New Orleans, it's like, this is a jewel. This is the jewel. This is the home. This is it.
So was it always for you that you had to make this record here?
Oh, absolutely. And I know I was right because, when these young women come up to me at the end of shows and they literally say, how I wish I could be that confident. I wish I could have what you have up there and everything I see in you. How do you be? It almost makes me weep because it makes me feel like me when I was a kid and I'm listening to this music and these women.
Paying it forward.
And I'm paying it forward and I'm hearing this music thinking, that's what I want. That's who I want to be. I don't want to be apologizing, diminutive decoration. I want to be this big, loud, strong, larger than life creature that sets people alight and makes people smile. Sure. I mean, that's ultimately, or makes them cry, either way. And there is no other city I could have made this. I want to be clear about this, and especially to the students here, to the people that you are, instilling the beauty of this city with. I have played everywhere in the world, pretty much. I've seen music everywhere. Yes, I'm a singer-songwriter, but my sensibility is always jazz. It's always been in that piano. It's always been in my voice. But I have to tell you that no one plays jazz, no one plays music like the people of New Orleans. That's not just, the fact that I'm playing with it. To me, like I've got the top tier of the most beautiful players I've ever come across in my life.
How did you come across and get with David Torkanowski to work with him as your MD?
He's been a fan of mine for a very, very long time, and I've been trying to find an excuse to work with him. And when I said that these women saved me and steered me twice in my life, like their fairy godmother sitting on my shoulder or something, when COVID happened, I was doing really well. I was doing like live with Judith, Owen, and Judith's Place, all sorts of stuff, and I was streaming every week. I was recording constantly. And then I was here, thankfully, because of course music was still on the streets, it was still, alive. But I really went down. I have not struggled with depression and anxiety quite like that for years, because it has been a lifetime struggle. You asked me why it takes so long. I had a few hurdles myself that I had to get past. Personal demons, as we all do. I call myself beautifully flawed. It's the truth. I make beauty out of something that's so not beautiful. And so my desire has always been to be a well, healthy human being, because I want to live. I want to live the best life I can have. And this music represents to me, as I said, possibility, hope, the person I can be, the person that is always inside but has struggled to come out. So David had been a fan of my 12 albums to date, singer-songwriter, and here I am in COVID. I'm bleak, I'm down, I'm dark. And I realized, John, I'm going to quote somebody that described Harry and my Christmas show once, which is, I would rather have stuck forks in my own eyes than done another deep, meaningful Judith Owen. You
got your fill of the deep Judith Owen record.
Well, because I did the deep meaningfuls during COVID, and it was beautiful and it was great. And then I thought,
time to turn it up.
I need to smile again. I mean, who didn't at that time?
Right.
I need to be joyful. I need to celebrate. I need to be hopeful. I want to feel, alive.
So in a way, COVID was actually a raison d'etre for this. In a way,
it was. COVID was my, I won't
So
call
there
it a
was
friend.
one positive from
Well, there's
COVID.
only one
There was
positive
one
that I can
positive from
find so
COVID.
far. I
Right.
mean, really, for any of us that have had it or been touched by it, and it's been a horrendous thing. I think a lot of artistic people, a lot of creative people did actually get, they either didn't write a thing or they were writing compulsively because they needed to. I mean, that's what it's for.
Right.
That's what I always say to young people, young artists, young musicians. This is the greatest gift of self-expression that you have, whether you're an interpreter, and I find myself here, as you say, absolutely as an interpreter, but I'm also an arranger and a writer. So every song that I sing is the truth to me. These aren't like some ad-lib bunch of songs that I decided I'd just throw together.
No, you
this
curated.
is my
We talked
childhood.
about this. You curated this
Yeah.
is your lifelong
That's
dream.
my life. This
to
is my
curate
young
this record.
life, and
Right.
I, the other thing is that these women are mostly unsung, apart from Peggy Lee. They're almost forgotten,
Right.
and that upsets me because they had such an extraordinary effect upon women like me. They opened doors for women like me,
Right.
and they were mentors. I mean, Mary Lou Williams was as was Blossom Dearie, mentor to Miles and Dizzy, and Charlie Parker. This is extraordinary, and these were profoundly inspiring women who do not get a word mentioned about them.
So let's get into showing some clips. So I saw you first do this show at Preservation Hall. You shot some videos there.
Yeah.
What was that experience like, and what would you want to show a minute of now?
It's like being in church. I'm going to say it. It's
jazz church.
It is jazz church.
Jazz and blues church, yeah.
Church.
Church.
It's. I was lucky enough to film my first music video there for Blossom's Blues, and I thought that was incredible enough, because anybody that's been inside Press Hall knows that it's the patina, the walls are almost throbbing with life and history, and so to do a show there, it was extraordinary. It was an extraordinary night.
So Blossom Blues was the first one you shot?
Yeah, it was the first music video
So
ever.
let's take a look at that.
Some women like her 'cause she's happy, some 'cause she's snappy, some call her honey, some think she's funny. And Ray Brown, he told her she was built for speed. Just put it all together, it's everything a good man needs. Oh, just put it all together, baby, it's everything a good man needs.
So Blossom Dearie was an interesting artist. I got turned on to her by a movie I was music supervising, and the director said, "Hey, do you know this song?" And I was like, "Nope." And I was like, "Whoa!" And it was a remix. It was a Brazilian remix done of her stuff, and it was unbelievable. And then I went deep into the catalog, and so I kind of got to know her stuff. I didn't know Nelly till you turned me on to it. But so talk about Blossom Dearie and why you chose her music to start your record.
Oh. Blossom Dearie was the most talk about a nonconformist, an unpigeonholable artist. Looked like a librarian, sounded like a sex kitten, played piano like a beast. I mean, Bill Evans bowed down to her as being like a masterclass in piano playing, which is an extraordinary thing, but she was. Miles loved her. He thought she literally was it. And I got to see her. I'm very glad that I came to America in the 90s, and I did, when we met in the mid-90s, because I got to see Nelly Lutcher, which is extraordinary. I got to do the full circle from my dad falling in love with her when he was a kid to me coming to America and finally seeing her, which was out of this world. And I got to see Blossom Dearie a few times perform, and in both situations, I will tell you right now, and this is another thing I tell young musicians, because all I ever wanted to be was a lifer. I say it's like, you're either a part-timer or a lifer. I want to be a lifer. I want to be that little old lady at the piano, and I'm going to be, John. Really, I am. I want to be the little old lady at the piano, like.
I wouldn't use the word old though. You may be
No,
a diminutive lady,
you know what?
but I don't know about
That's very
old.
well said of you. I think it's a bad word. I'm telling you off every time he uses the word old. I'm like, there is no such thing as old, okay? There is
Yes.
only timeless. I want to be that timeless woman at the piano. So both of them the minute they start playing, the minute they start singing, they may as well be 21. They may as well be. This is the
Takes it right
spirit
back.
of music.
Sure.
Just what comes into their body. This is what happens. I remember seeing Doc Cheatham at, it was at Snug Harbor. He had to be almost carried up on stage. He was so fragile. His trumpet, he had his horn there. He was just sort of like hoisted up. Remember that? He brings the trumpet up to his lips, and it's like,
Yeah.
I remember the whole place just gasping, because it's a similar thing to why is music the last place that people with dementia or Alzheimer's have. I remember my auntie in Wales who had Alzheimer's and wasn't there anymore, but you start singing near her, she would
go right through
sing every
Right.
word of the song, perfect pitch, the whole way through.
Right.
And she was she couldn't speak.
It is the ultimate gift.
It's the ultimate gift, but it's the ultimate, I think it's the ultimate vocabulary that human beings have. I think it is the greatest thing that we have. I'm biased, I know, but I really do think it's very special.
Let's get back to the musicians, because
Yes.
there's so many amazing new musicians. And the great thing for me, one of the greatest things for me about this project was that you chose a young bass player who is the son of my old college roommate,
know, this is
with
extraordinary.
no connection from me.
None.
Which I had been about to connect you with him, and then I found out that he had already done sessions with you. His name is Lex Warshawski. He's a stand-up bass player from New Jersey, and tremendous kid, and has been with you a long time. So tell me how you connected with him, and how it is playing with such a youth, 27 years old,
yeah.
right? How is that
It's absolutely perfect.
multi-generational?
I've got a band that goes from 27 to sort of like, I don't know, mid-60s, and it's sort of like, and, yesterday I did something with Herlin Riley, and I played with Charlie Gabriel, and
Talk about a guy who's still out there doing
come
it
on,
at 90.
come on,
Right, Charlie
it
Gabriel.
just takes your breath away. So I'm one of those people who I'm so moved and honored to always play with, who I see as being the greats, the people that were there, that did it. That Charlie talks about being with the Aretha Franklin Orchestra and Lionel Hampton. It's just like,
Wow.
and then Herlin is like, he's a
legend.
gift, a legend. So I feel like that's another reason, of course, I had to end up here. Not only was I hearing the music, but when I got here and thought, this is it. Where else is there a scene like that? Where else is there this richness? And where else are people who, need to talk all the time? But also, where else are there people who must play, otherwise they will expire?
Right.
So Lex is one more of those people like me who come to this place because it is just like, it's the melting pot of everything that makes you, if you're thinking jazz, if you're thinking this is the only place where this scene
let me tell you one
exists.
quick Lex story.
Oh,
so
tell
when
me.
we were, my family would come in from California, and their family was in New Jersey, and we would vacation together. So our kids got to grow up together a little bit, at least once a year. And we went to a house on Long Island, and my son and Lex would basically play sports all day long. It was like throw balls in the pool, play them for stickball, basketball, tennis, whatever it is. One year, Lex brings his stand-up bass, and my son, who's 2 years younger, is like, Lex says, like, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to quit baseball. And not only that, I have to practice for 4 hours a day. And my son, like, almost starts crying.
Oh, I know.
Because he realizes his play guy has been
the
taken over.
bromance is
Has
over.
been taken over. Well, the bromance is now with the stand-up bass.
Well, yeah.
And so whatever else doesn't fit into that time period, we could play ball after and before.
But not.
But the dedication, I want to say he was 14. I don't even remember how old. But it's just so great to see him. And I always convinced him. I said, Lex, you've got to go to New Orleans. He's like, I'm going to go to New York. I'm down with Christian McBride and his people. I was like, no, Lex, come to New Orleans first. At least try it for a year and see what happens. And I'm so glad that you and Torque have taken him under your wing.
I'm thrilled that you told him that, because you can tell that he's been playing 4 hours at least every single day. Because what's amazing about Lex is that he's a really young guy, but he's got this understanding and a musical vocabulary that is so old. I mean, you're talking about Blossom Jerry. My favorite things about one of the reasons I love that track, Blossom's Blues, It's because there's this great line that says, Ray Brown told me I was built for speed, which is the funniest thing in the world, you know, being that she looks like a librarian.
Right.
He's a Ray Brown fan. He plays like Ray Brown because but there's lots of Ray Brown fans out there. Doesn't mean you're going to have the intonation, the pocket, the swing. Lex has it all. It's extraordinary.
Right.
I mean, it really, really is. For the first time, I met him because he'd been playing with Dave, obviously, Torkanowski, and Pedro Segundo, my long-time
So I wanted to ask you
drummer.
about Pedro, because I first
Yeah.
met Pedro at your place in California,
Yeah.
playing a gig with you before you did this.
Yeah.
And I was like, who's this kid?
Yeah, I
So-
mean, well, Pedro, I brought to America with me, and at the time when I was playing with Leland Sklar, another little-known bass player, I think
Yes,
you'd
he's
agree.
okay. He's done a couple records.
He's done a couple, 2,500. So he's a legend and incredible to work with. So we were a trio, and we toured. They were my band, and we toured for the longest time. And then Pedro was my band, and it was like a duo thing, which was extraordinary too. Pedro had this band in London called Kansas Smithies, and it was very much 1930s. A really, really fun jazz, 30s and 40s, and so he was well into that.
was in it.
And the extraordinary thing about Pedro is that he's a classical, like me, he's a classical baby and a great classical percussionist, and he's an absolute jazzer. And he and I, different times in our lives, came from a London where, like, I was opening for some huge names in Ronnie Scott's when I was a kid. And he was in the Ronnie Scott's, decades later, he's in Ronnie Scott's band, opening for, it's a very strange parallel. He's from Lisbon, Portugal. He's exquisite drummer. Like I said, there's no one I play with him
Yeah,
who
so
isn't
speaking
remarkable.
of exquisite drummers, one of our professors here and Snarky Puppy member, Jameson Ross,
Yeah.
talk about him. Because I know he's playing,
Oh,
you have
boy.
a show coming up, you have a tour coming up.
I have a
which we'll
tour
talk
coming
about.
up, and I have a show at the Toulouse Theatre, which is kicking off the tour, and Jameson's playing on that. He is, he's a special human being. I mean, he's playing, you play like you are. That's what I have learned over the years, is your personality comes out and you're playing. The instrument you choose is usually your personality too. Every bass player I know, Lex included, is usually a tall, lean drinker water. Not all, but it's amazing how they all have these kind of pretty, relaxed personalities. And it's with Jameson, he has, and I was a fan of his since Snarky Puppy, but I'm also a fan of his own music as well. He brings a beautiful ease and joy and just this absolutely comfort. You know what I mean? When you see him play, it's just like, what is going on? He is so beautiful to watch.
And it's amazing Loyola has people like him, Jason Mingledorff from the Nightcrawlers, and Jake from the New Orleans Suspects.
Yeah.
We have this incredible
Group of people.
talent here.
And by
that's
the way,
why-
Jameson's singing voice, that's something. I mean,
Yeah.
come on. That's the other thing. As a
Yeah.
writer,
So who
as
else?
everything.
Tell me who else is in the band.
I'm sport to death. I have Kevin Lewis, who to me is one of New Orleans' finest, because his sound on cornet is quintessential New Orleans. I mean, the man plays 2 notes and it's like, it's Kevin. But it's a bottle of joy. All these men, Pedro's a bottle of joy. They're all bottles of joy. Kevin, Pedro, Kevin, Ricardo Pascal on sax. Good grief. Talk about somebody, a young guy, mid-30s. He can play like he was alive in the 40s and 50s. I mean, he's scholarly, he's remarkable, but what he brings, that sexy, the grease.
Right.
The grease. So then Jason Marsalis on vibes.
Wow.
There are no words. I was
That's
just in the
strong.
studio with him doing the Christmas
Right.
songs. It's incredible. David Blankhorn he's the only person that comes in, although he joins us there. He's an Australian that lives in France, but I met him through David Torkanowski again when he was making a record here. And again, to me, he's one of the family. He's one of those people who can just do that Django and then cross over into the 50s, 60s jazz. you know it when you hear it. It's just like doing that. It's
so
just the
now
tastiest
that's
stuff
one
ever.
thing. And then the second time I got to see this show was at the Toulouse. And you played with a big band.
Oh yeah.
So what's a track you want to show a little bit of the video from that?
Oh, I think you can choose here. You can choose live from that show, Lucky So and So,
I'd like to do that.
which might just blow your mind.
Okay, check out a little bit of Lucky So and So.
I'm just a lucky so and so. I'm lucky. Oh, so lucky. I'm just a lucky so and so.
Wow, that was great. How many piece band was that you played with that night with the J.O. Orchestra?
With the J.O. because isn't that so great?
It's fantastic.
That was, I believe it was 15 or 16 gentlemen in the big band, and then the Gentlemen Callers, my band with it. So 21, 22. And I got to tell you, not only squeezing into a gown of that nature is terrifyingly fun, and it really, really is, but being, you know, my again, like when I talk about being an entertainer, I'm also somebody that my mother was a huge Ella fan, but also a Frank Sinatra fan. You know, that the big band thing. The second record I heard after Fine Brown Frame, after Nellie Lutcher, was Pearl Bailey and the Cootie Williams Orchestra, Tess's Torch Song, and it took my hair off. I mean, that to me was one of the most exciting things I've ever heard in my entire life. That's why it's on this album. That's why I had to do that. Because that's why I did the big band show. Because I gotta tell you, if you ever sing in front of a big band, you just, it's almost like you can't go back because everything seems so
Well,
so
you were
puny after.
smiling. I mean, look, every time you do this show, your joyfulness, as we talked about, I've never seen you more happy in my life. So it's really, and obviously you take it with that level of big band, and it was just like, what a show.
It's ecstatic.
Yeah.
It made me so happy that people came up to me, like friends of yours came, have never seen me before, and said, can this be every month? Can you do a, you know,
Can't
it's
really
like,
tour that show.
You
It's a
can't.
little
All
bit
you
too
can
big.
do is make it a destination show, and yes,
Yeah.
of course, I'd love to do it, but and I will do it again, and nowhere better than an old burlesque theatre, of
Right.
course, than the Toulouse. But
So,
it's
so
a
speaking of
true
Toulouse,
art
so
form, yeah.
Tomorrow night, you're playing at the Toulouse.
Yes.
And then you're going to go on tour. And you have a bunch of dates. Talk about, you're playing some like classic venues, jazz venues in different places. Talk a little bit about what your plans are with you and the Gentlemen heading out.
The Gentlemen, Toulouse on the 30th, and then we've got this marvelous Royal Studios in Memphis.
Classic thing, Al
It's a
Green's
classic thing.
studio.
You tell them about that, 'cause
Willie Mitchell at a studio in Memphis called Royal, where Ann Peebles and Al Green recorded all their hits, and the grease of this venue still exists, and it's still the same. And Willie's grandson Boo invited us to perform there, so we're going to be doing that. And then you go to Nashville.
And then Nashville on the 5th, Rudy's. Then I go over to LA, and I'm very excited to be playing the Grammy Museum on October 9th.
Yeah, that's
I played it before,
classic
and it is
venue.
classic. Clive Davis Theatre there, I can't wait. Then I get on a plane, fly to New York, and I play at this extraordinary venue called the McKittrick Hotel, which is...
That's more like a residency, right?
It's a residency. I do 4 nights straight, and it's after this incredible... They do this show called Sleep No More.
Which is, I saw, it was incredible.
Is it ridiculous?
You know what's interesting about that show? When I was there, when I worked at Def Jam, I met Usher, and Usher and his former wife were there, and I realized that a lot of stars go to the show because your whole show you're in mask.
Yeah.
And so they can just have a
Incognito.
night, and they don't have to get right out of their SUV and jump in, and nobody sees them, and they have the greatest time. What a great idea!
What a great idea! And these Arthur and Jonathan that own and run this and develop this whole thing. What a miraculous idea to do a film noir version of Macbeth.
Right, and it's been playing for years.
Oh my gosh, yes. And they move throughout the building. It's a gigantic old hotel.
Right.
And within this is a speakeasy. Hello. And so, of course, when that's done, the late night show
Cleaner the
begins.
speakeasy arrives.
I turn up, and when I say that playing this music in a speakeasy feels like nothing else on
Right. I'm
earth.
so excited to see
Because
it.
you just, you're back in that period. And then after that, it's one of my favorite venues in Chicago, Space in Evanston, which of course Lex went to Northwestern, so that's great. And then we finish in, let me see, it's the Sound Room in Oakland. San Francisco is the last one on the 26th. So Chicago's 24th, that's the 26th. That's the end of the run.
So
and
busy October for you.
Well, yeah, then 3 weeks later, it's back to Paris, Switzerland, Italy, and London.
Wow.
And then, Jonathan McHugh, drum roll, thank you, December 19th, the Orpheum, Christmas Without
You're doing the Orpheum
Tears.
again.
Yes, it's the truth.
And you normally bring out a bunch of great people for that every year, right? There's
It's
a lot of
extraordinary. We've already got John Goodman. We've already got Kermit Ruffins. We've already got Zachary Richard, Brian Batt, Trixie Minx. We're
And this is more like
excited.
a variety show, right? How do you describe it?
It's the antidote to Christmas. I find Christmas really very, very hard. I always have done. You've been in my house and seeing these parties. I've always struggled. The black dog in me comes from why I needed music so much is because my mother passed away right before Christmas. So to me, it's one of those.
It's a mourning.
Bittersweet.
It's a mourning period
It
versus
is.
a celebratory period.
Yeah, because she instilled the love of Christmas like I've never got over. I love Christmas, but I'm so missing her. And I think a lot of people struggle with it. They struggle with it for many reasons, but it's you miss people no longer here, you worry about money, you worry about everything. Christmas is not quite the jolly period that everybody always thinks it is. So I always feel that this show is as it's full of joy and frivolity and rudeness, and it's also unbelievably moving and reverent. It's irreverent. It's
Yeah, the
reverent.
Christmas show is great. I never saw the New Orleans when I saw it in LA.
Oh,
It was fantastic.
well,
Fun,
last
fun, fun.
year's. If anybody came to last year's and watching this, it was profound. It was so moving to be at the Orpheum, to be looking at, to be in front of the Nutcracker set, and doing this.
I got to see Big Frida
Big Frida came
twerking with the symphony.
Yeah.
That was kind of special.
Well, that's
at
kind of
that venue.
special. When
It's a
she
special
came out,
venue.
oh, listen, let me tell you, she came out with the girls dressed as elves. It was
Oh,
a
is
great
that
moment.
right?
It was a great moment. But I
Joy, joy, joy.
it is joy, 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 and the bottle of joy cannot be. I can't say enough about the fact that the bottle of joy really is New Orleans.
Yeah. So
It
before we
is.
wrap, we got a couple more things to go over. But
Yeah.
what is it about New Orleans for you that really feels special? And what are some of your favorite things to do here? And also talk about living in the French Quarter, which is like living in Twilight Zone for me. But talk about that. And
Cool. It's the best place to live, I tell you. It's just on all the time. Again, you would say, why does it take so long? Well, it takes so long to have the confidence and to know you're enough and to stop apologizing. Brits apologize all the time. I did that too. But to actually be encouraged to be your full, complete self, to be a cross-dressing woman with big hair and a hat and to be all those things. There's nowhere in this world that allows you to be yourself more than New Orleans. There's
true.
nowhere that makes you embrace yourself
Right.
and that encourages you to wear 20 wigs during Mardi Gras and to spend a year doing your costume and to rock up looking like an absolute weirdo at every possible occasion. It's about celebration.
Yeah.
It's about having fun and laughing. And so I do believe that this place is, there's nowhere else where music sounds like it does here. There's nowhere else where music, you can close your eyes and listen to this record and these players are smiling. You know they are, because they're filled with joy. There's grease and there's sexiness and there's joy, and it's all in there. Anything that comes from this place. But there's also this liberation. People are here to enjoy life, food, experiencing, each other, the social aspect of it. It's got plenty of problems. We know that. But in a city that names its potholes and has birthday parties for them, I am willing to say that's where I want to be, okay, in spite of all the problems that are happening here.
Yeah.
And they get
No, I
bigger
agree.
and worse
Someone
every day.
said to me recently when a lifelong person said, I was telling him about my gig here at Loyola, and he said to me, "So, you voluntarily relocated here?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then it's like, he goes, "Yeah, this has got a lot of problems in the city." I go, "How long you been here?" He goes, "My whole life." And I was like, "Oh, I realized that's the thing. Like, it's nowhere's perfect, but I agree with you in the sense of, I mean, it's still 90 degrees. It's almost October, right? But the celebratory nature of things, the food, the music, just listening to the OffBeat and reading the concert listings and OffBeat and listening to WOZ concert listings and WTUL concert listings. Like every day is like, oh shit, I should go to that. I should go to that. Wait, I can't go to that. It's like
it's explosive.
It's ridiculous.
Every night you have like 30 at least things that you could. Where else in the world have you ever come? You've got thousands of brilliant restaurants you can eat at, and you can go to two shows. I drove down a street the other day and I almost crashed the car. It's very close to you, I think. I almost crashed the car. A house has covered its entire front garden and the house in pumpkins. I almost crashed the car because I was like...
Yeah, people love dressing shit up.
Where else does this happen? And that's what I mean. I need to smile. We all need.
All right, speaking of
feel
smiling, before we wrap,
we're
going to play a couple more tracks, but Nellie Lusher, we talked about.
Yeah.
Fine Brown Fame.
Yeah.
What was it about that record that just jumped you off and said, wow, I'm going down this road?
Joy. I mean, I didn't realize how sexy it was. I was 6, so I didn't know that she was talking about some fantastic god of a man. I had no idea. But I learned very quickly after. But I knew that in that was joy. Again, it was a bottle of joy. And I could hear in her strength, power. She's an elegant woman. This is a woman who at age 12, she's playing in church like a nice girl, like all nice girls did. Ma Rainey rocked through town, and her piano player went on a bender, probably went AWOL. Next thing, 12-year-old Nellie Lusher played piano for Ma Rainey,
in the gig.
And the rest is history.
Wow, so she was broken by that one.
It's incredible, but it was there already, you know, it was there. And with all these women, Julia Lee, Kansas City, queen of double entendre and innuendo. Julia Lee and her boyfriends, that's why I call, the gentleman callers. There's always that thing, you're a woman in charge. I'm a woman in charge on this stage, and it feels really quite fantastic, let me tell you, with these superb musicians. But I think that every one of these songs, every one of these women has this spark of life, the joy that emanates from this music. And I want, it's my turn to be the interpreter. It's my turn to carry these songs, these stories, these marvelous women who opened these doors for all of us. It's my turn to put my take on it, because I am an arranger and an interpreter and writer.
Yeah.
And so I think the freshness, because even though it's from that period, it sounds like a classic record. I know we've spoken about this, but there's something that's very fresh and unique and contemporary about it. And I think it's because it's, I have this voice that doesn't, again, it's not, you can't categorize it. It's this voice that fits like that into this music. And
yeah, it's a fantastic record, and the show
you.
just makes it pop to life. I'm excited to see the show tomorrow night at the Toulouse again. What video would you like to show to close?
I suppose it kind of has to be Fine Brown Frame, I think, at Preservation Hall. Yet.
That was a good one.
Again, it was a great one, and I can't tell you how it feels, and to tell your students and young people starting out to never give up, never be put off. People will tell you terrible things. I was signed to a major label. I had everything behind me. I was meant to sell multi-millions. And suddenly the rug was pulled out from under me because a new president came in. It happens all the time. You know that.
All the time.
All the time.
It's a regime-based system.
It is a regime-based system, and it's a bank. It's not,
so are film studios.
Exactly. These are banks, and it's not called the music business or the film business for nothing. It's not called the loving, the music loving, family. This is a true business. So I would say to any young person out there is to, the drive, the desire not to give up, to not be put off, to not really take on too much of what people tell you, and to be your best self. Being a copy is not the way, is not the answer. Be your best you. And for all of us who have, and I've experienced in that situation, I've had to jump through hoops. I've had to try and please people and try and do what I thought they wanted. You're not going to do anything that way. It's not going to get you anywhere. What gets you somewhere is being utterly authentic. And it might be the harder road. It'll be the longer road. And you'll be grateful for it at the end of the day, because these moments in life come through where everything comes into place. And like me, you feel utterly grateful to have made it to this point and to have never given up. And that's what it's about.
A lot of gratitude. Judith Owens, happy to be here. Tomorrow night at the show at the Toulouse. You could buy this record there. You could pick it up online. You could stream it, almost 2 million streams. I'd like to thank Jan Ramsey, John G, Noe, Albert here at Loyola for hosting us, and most of all you for showing up, coming uptown. I know it's tough to get out of that French Quarter.
Parking was appalling. It was literally, I'm right outside.
That's why we left LA, because yeah, it's not that hard. Anyway, we're going to close out with Fine Brown Frame. Peace and love. Fridays Offbeat. Jonathan McHugh. Much love.
Oh, he's got a fine brown frame. I wonder what could be his name. He looks good to me, and all I can see is his fine brown frame. How long have you been around, Mister? Where did you hit this big town? I wanna scream out, 'cause I've never seen such a fine brown frame. All that I have is a broken down chair, but I would gladly make him king of my throne. Come over here, stop being a square. Together we can really be gone. Oh, he's got